In today's video, we'll be looking at various insights related to beating diabetes and taking back your health. We'll be considering, among other things, the issue of weight. Why is it that some people, when they become diabetic, gain weight, and others lose weight like crazy? And we'll also take a look at the question of whether so-called dead beta cells can be revived. All right, here's a question. Why do type 2 diabetics start losing weight? Please explain. Well, typically they don't. One of the marks of type 2 diabetes typically is that you will gain weight, and the reason is your pancreas is trying to keep up with the carbs you're eating, and because you have insulin resistance, that sugar is hanging around and your pancreas is just pumping itself to death, pumping out more and more insulin. Most type 2 diabetics, your problem is not your pancreas. Your pancreas is probably working just fine, with emphasis on probably because it's not true for all. But for many type 2 diabetics, I would venture to say most, the problem is not your pancreas. The problem is your insulin resistance. So when your pancreas is working fine, it's going to dump out loads of insulin, which means you're going to gain weight because insulin is a growth hormone. It will cause you to gain weight. If you suddenly start losing weight like crazy, it's pretty bad news because it means your pancreas has stopped producing very much insulin. And that's the classic case of the type 1 before he's diagnosed. Suddenly they're losing weight like crazy, and they've lost 30 pounds in a month's time, and they look terrible, and they're wondering, what's going on? I'm eating about as much as before. But they're producing almost no insulin, and therefore they're going to lose weight. If you're overweight, the one piece of good news for you is your pancreas is probably working just fine, maybe overworking. And all the overweight aspect of you is telling you that. There's lots of insulin going on. Now, that's not a good thing, but at least you can work with that. You can reduce the carbs. You can do the intermittent fasting and get the weight down. But if you are dropping weight like crazy, inexplicably, and you just don't understand it, you seem to be eating as much as you ever did, chances are that your pancreas isn't doing very much, and you need to get to a doctor and get tested and find out if that's the case. There may be other things, so I'm not saying it has to be that way, but I would say it's a pretty good likelihood. When there's very little insulin going on, you will lose weight. When there's a lot of insulin going on, you will gain weight. So if you are saying, hey, I'm a type 2, but I'm losing weight like crazy, go to a doctor and get tested and find out what's going on. It may be you're in between a type 2 and a type 1. You're producing some insulin, but not very much at all. You may be a LADA, the type that has almost slow motion type 1. You're gradually moving from type 2 to type 1. And you need to get tested, get to a good doctor. Okay. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. If you're not producing much insulin at all, the old school idea was your beta cells are dead, nothing you can do about it, you're stuck that way for the rest of your life. Dr. Jason Fung has introduced a whole new concept into this whole area. And he has suggested, because he's seen so many people that seem to see a rebound in their pancreatic function, he has suggested it may be that the problem is not really that your beta cells are dead or that your pancreas has just become totally, useless. He has suggested that your pancreas is so loaded with fat and you've got so much fatty pancreas that it just can't function well. And that when you do intermittent fasting and low-carb eating and you lose the fat around your pancreas, and that's all through your pancreas, those cells will become functional once again, and you'll see your pancreas doing much, much better. Well, that's a wonderful hope, for people that don't see much pancreatic function. So if you are in that case and the doctor tells you, you're producing very little insulin, there is hope, I would think, for many, that if they can do some intermittent fasting and low-carb eating in time, that pancreas can rebound and do better. I can't guarantee it, obviously, and I can't, speak directly to your situation, but as a general practice, that is a possibility, according to Jason Fung, and it makes perfect sense to me. So, anyway. Here's a person who says, if you can lift weights, do it. I've been keto for almost a year. I was still pre-diabetic. I had an A1C of 12.7 at one time. So we went from 12.7 to pre-diabetic, which is below 6.5 A1C, according to American standards. And he got below the 6.5 division, but he couldn't get too much lower. He said, I've tried intermittent fasting. It helps, but to get rid of my diabetes, lifting weights finally finished it off. Well, that's cool. I don't lift weights myself. I'm an old guy, and I'm just not into that kind of a thing. And I can keep my A1C at a pretty decent range without doing that. But Dr. Richard Bernstein promotes lifting weights and doing weight training. And, you don't have to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger to be sure, but it can help. So muscular bodies will tend to handle carbs better than flabby ones. Some people are not overweight, but they're just flabby. They have very little muscular nature about their bodies. They're just flabby from top to bottom. And that is not the kind of body that's most efficient at handling carbs and promoting efficient metabolic processes. So if you can be a little muscular and do some weight. I used to do a lot of push-ups when I was younger. And at one time I could do I think 70 push-ups at one time. Good push-ups, not the little lazy kind that some people do. But I was having my back strained, and I was getting back pains, and I just finally gave it up. It's not worth it. And I found I can control my glucose and my A1C without the weightlifting or the push-ups. But if you can do it, it could well help you. Here's one person who's kind of mocking those who say, well, you haven't really beaten diabetes, you've just avoided it. All you're doing is avoiding the carbs. And so let me tell you how you can really beat it. Usually they'll tell you go to a whole food plant-based diet. He says, imagine if I came to you and said, I've lost a ton of weight, I've worked out, I now run half marathons, and you tell me, well, if you stop running and eat everything in sight, you'll be flabby again. So you really haven't gotten yourself in shape. In other words, just because you're doing something that's made things better, if you stop, they'll get worse again, so you haven't really beaten anything. Well, I'd say you have. What we're talking about here is maintenance, and everything has to be maintained. I may get my house in beautiful shape inside and out, and the house is sparkling and pristine. Every aspect of the house is perfect. Floors are beautiful. Carpets are spotless. The outside looks great. The roof is brand new, and the lawn is perfection. The shrubs are just the way they should be, from the yard to the outside of the house to the inside of the house. Everything is beautiful. And there's only one thing I need to bring that house from pristine condition to total ruin. And that is just walk away from that house for about 20 or 30 or 40 years and do nothing. Do no maintenance at all, and that house will fall apart. The lawn will look terrible. The outside will look terrible. Windows will be broken. Inside will look horrible. You got to maintain. Everything has to be maintained, whether it's a car or a house or a person or your body, your metabolic system. Everything has to be maintained. So if people say, well, yeah, you beat diabetes by avoiding the carbs, but if you go back to the carbs, you're going to have it again. Well, so what? That's like saying, well, you got your car running good now because you keep oil in it and you keep it maintained, but if you will ever just neglect it for a few years, it'll fall apart. Yes, it will, and so will I if I don't maintain, but I don't see that as a big issue. Of course, you've got to maintain your car, your house, and your body. And so eating junk is not maintaining. Okay, let's go on to this person. Starts with a great big thank you. It's in all caps with 2 exclamation points, so they obviously mean it here. In October 2018, I heard the words from my doctor I was sure would come at some point in my life: you are diabetic. With my family history, it was inevitable to me as diabetes has run rampant on both sides of my family. So after beginning on meds and making necessary dietary changes, I steadily lost weight, but after 6 months and 55 pounds of weight loss, everything stopped, and I couldn't get my blood sugar under 100 very often. The numbers were no longer falling, no matter how good I was. And so I don't know what they were doing, but apparently they weren't doing quite all that they needed to do, because they finally saw some things that they needed to change. He says it only took a couple of days to see the recommended diet was doing me more harm than good. That is the standard diet, or standard diabetic diet. Switched to intermittent fasting, low-carb, keto, Atkins diet, keeping a detailed log from my doctor. My sugar numbers are down 15 points on average. They continue to get better. My weight has again fallen, now down 70 pounds. Praise God, from all blessings flow. So they plateaued at a certain point. They were apparently doing some things right, but they weren't doing intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, and they weren't really doing low-carb as much as they probably needed to. So they went to a lower carb, and they went to time-restricted eating, and then the weight started coming off again. The numbers started coming down again. So, when you plateau, you look around and say, what can I change? What do I have to do? Basically, the idea of beating diabetes is, okay, I'm here, and victory for me means this, and you have to set that. I'm not going to tell you what it means. For me, victory means low A1C in the low 5s, and for me, victory means a fasting glucose under 100, and obviously I'm feeling good. And you have to say, okay, here's what victory means for me. Here's the A1C that I want to shoot as far as my target. Here's my fasting glucose, and I'm here, but I want to get there. What do I need to do? And you make changes. And if the changes get you halfway there, but they don't get you all the way, then you say, okay, I'm going to have to make further changes. Maybe I've been doing a window of eating for 8 hours. I'm going to make it 6 hours. Maybe I've been having occasional pieces of bread. I'm going to cut it out altogether. You have to make the changes until you get to where you want to go. Well, it's very simple. And it's what entrepreneurs have known for a long time. That is, you set your goal, and then you pay whatever price you have to pay to get there. And I've always felt like I will pay whatever price I need to pay to get to the land of good health. I don't really want to pay more than that. In other words, I'm not a martyr. I'm not looking to sacrifice more than I need to, but I'll sacrifice what I need to get to where I feel I need to be. And so where I feel I need to be is in the upper 4s or low 5s. So far, I'm mostly in the low 5s. I don't want my fasting glucose over 100. What do I have to do to get there? Well, I'll change my diet. I'll add more days of intermittent fasting, or days where I skip breakfast, and I'll have like a 6 or 6.5 hour window from about 12:30 to 6:30. And, I will do things. And if that's not enough, I'll add an extra day of intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. If that's not enough, I'll give up bread altogether. I'll do whatever I have to do. When I get there, then it's like, okay, I'm there. I'll maintain, may even, cut back a little bit if I can. But I want to stay right where that target is. So, and another one of my goals is I don't want to see my glucose spike over 140 when I tend to peak after a meal. So if I eat a meal and it goes up to 150, I say that meal's not working. What can I change about that to make that work and keep that around under 140? But we all have to set our own goals. Talk to your doctor, work with your doctor, make the decision that you have to make, and start moving that direction. And if you plateau, then it's time to reevaluate and say, what else can I do? What do I need to do to get there? The good news is it's often not that bad. And, I have never felt like I'm suffering, in my diet, in my lifestyle. I'm enjoying my life. I enjoy my food. And, I'm not going around feeling sorry for myself. Oh, poor Dennis, you've got these diabetic tendencies. You got them from your mother, and now you've got them. And, oh, you can't eat the way people eat. You can't eat that big, fat baked potato with your steak. Well, so what, Would you like a little cheese with that wine? I'm enjoying my life. And that's what I want for you, my friend, is for you to enjoy your life and find alternatives and just move right along with your life and live out a full life, live out your years in good health and life is good. God is good. So we're going to call an end to it at this point. I want to thank you for listening and watching this channel. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing that and click that bell icon so you'll be notified every time we post a new video. Appreciate if you can click the thumbs up on my individual videos. That will help. YouTube will be impressed a little bit if enough people do it, and they will promote it more to other people. And especially we want diabetics to know about it. Many diabetics have said to me, I typed in something about diabetes and your video was the first one that popped up. Well, that's cool. That means things are working the way they're supposed to work. And we've had a number of people hit the thumbs up. So appreciate that. God bless, and we'll see you again soon.